We're live! Yay! Okay. So everybody, welcome to Dive in World Building. This is still very have labels for everybody that's going to be like do really fancy and whatever. But you know what? Those are aspirational, so we'll have them some other time. And after all, we're having kind of a casual chat in a way. Our guest today is Maurice Broaddus, who's here to talk about his work and his world building, and this should be very, very awesome. And say hi, Maurice.
Hi, Maurice.
Oh. Well done. So, okay. I guess, let's see. Let me start with the Kingmaker universe. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what your trilogy is about?
Sure. It's my Knights of Cretan Court series. It's Kingmaker, King's War, and King's Justice. And basically, it's a retelling of the legend of King Arthur, except I set it in inner city Indianapolis, told through the eyes of homeless teenagers and gang members.
Sweet. That is incredibly awesome. I took a peek into it just this morning, and I was going, really amazing how you've done that. So, where did this idea come from for you?
Well, at the time, I was doing a lot of volunteer work here in town with a homeless teenager ministry, and
Okay.
and so I was part of their what they called their street team, and so we'd go out and just visit the teens wherever they were living, and so I found myself crawling actual city in a whole new perspective because we're crawling under bridges, we're wandering through tracts of undeveloped land, we're going through abandoned buildings, and I'm just struck by the fact of this is the city I've grown up in and I've lived in most of my life, and yet I never knew this whole side of the city. I never knew the side of the city. I never knew about homeless teenagers. I mean, it was just like a whole new world opening up for me. And so, and then fast forward a little bit, I did a series of writing seminars with the teens, and at one point we were doing some writing exercises, and I was saying, just giving them instructions on how to just reimagine themselves in totally different, in any of a number of different ways, and I threw out the line, you're princes, you're princes and princesses of the streets, and something about that line just stuck in the back of my head, and so I was just like, I wonder what that would look like. So I just started developing the idea after that.
That's very, very interesting. Yeah. I like your idea of reimagining the self.
Right.
Yeah, very cool. And so I guess once you had that sort of entry, you just ran with it.
Oh, you could say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because as I found when I started writing the book, because I wove a lot of the kids' stories into the book itself, and I found that one of the most the terrifying aspect of the book, especially with Kingmaker, was the fact not the dragons or the zombies or any of the other monsters that pop up during the course of it, but it was just the real life of what the kids go through. I found to be the most terrifying aspect of writing the story. So,
Yeah.
So you have that real world element, and that's the part that most people find almost unbelievable. To be honest with you, they're fully capable of accepting elf assassins and trolls, but the whole idea of homeless teenagers was pretty much a shocking revelation for a lot of folks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, somehow that seems to be true. I'm not sure why it's easier to imagine an entire, parallel world of magic and wizards coexisting with our own than, to imagine a world of homeless people or, destitute people of various varieties. So, yeah, I think, I think you've got two really, really interesting narratives that come together in this context. So it looks like a lot of the research that you did you have to, okay, so you obviously had this great experience going out and working through the homeless teenager ministry and working with the kids on the street, which I'm sure served as pretty important research for the trilogy.
Right.
Did you also have to do independent research on the Arthurian legends?
Well, I ended up doing a lot more research than I had planned because once I got into the book, then I found myself just wandering into areas of town, because like there's a whole drug culture element to the story also, and
Mm-hmm.
so uh, my wife hates this story. Um, uh, there were times when I'd wander into certain areas of town, 'cause I wanted to observe drug deals as they were going on,
Mm,
to kind of capture the flavor of, it's like any good researcher. You want to go and you see everything firsthand, so you can write from a firsthand sort of experience.
absolutely.
But it's and looking back, I realized that wandering through some of the neighborhoods I was wandering through with a clipboard and a notepad, uh, just like, yeah, you guys just carry on. Don't mind me. I just want to watch you. That in retrospect was not one of my better thought out ideas. Um,
Oh my god.
And yet here you are.
right, and here I am. So that's when I decided, well, maybe I won't go as firsthand with some of my research. But one of the craziest things I discovered was using YouTube as a research tool. Because I just typed in I typed in like gang member initiations in Indianapolis, and wouldn't you know, I found all this stuff just posted online.
Oh my god, of
So
course.
and so I was just stunned by just how much research was just, well, not research, but just how much people just like to videotape themselves doing all sorts of stuff. And I was like, well, this is a researcher's best friend right here, so I'll just go with it.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, now as far as researching the Arthurian legend, that was a whole different thing entirely, because I'd grown up reading, a lot of the legends, and the great part about this was, I get to watch Excalibur like 50 times and call it research. But so I devoured anything King Arthur for like I don't know, about a year and a half. If it was in a comic book, if it was in a book, if it was in a movie, a TV show, I was reading and watching it. And so it's great because I have a lot of friends who are deep into the Arthurian legend, so I got to pick their brains for like hours at a time,
Sure.
just on just different theories about on some of my takes about King Arthur, and not just King Arthur, because I mean a lot of people were familiar with the whole Lancelot, Guinevere, King Arthur triangle, but what really kind of drew me in was all the other knights that were involved in the legend, and so I just wanted to explore a lot of their stories too.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, so it strikes me, well, so did you read Mists of Avalon during your research?
I didn't read Mist of Avalon. I think I ended up watching the miniseries, which wasn't which I know just wasn't as good as the books were. Um,
I don't have a statement on that because
okay.
I never saw the miniseries. But no, I was just curious because I know that I know that you're taking this from a unique viewpoint,
Mhm.
a sort of an alternate viewpoint.
Right.
Um, so I was just curious whether it would have behooved you to seek out another type of alternate viewpoint, or whether you were, you know, I could see that there would be plenty to struggle with in the balance between
Right.
your experience walking around and endangering yourself and legends. So I'm sure there was a lot to do.
Right, right. And I did go through. I'm trying to remember just because I had like a stack of books while I was going through this, and just trying to tear through as much material as possible, and going through all the poems
Uh-huh.
and everything like that. Um, but and like I said, even comic books, because there was a comic book called Camelot 3000, which was it was like a futuristic take on the
Oh,
Arthurian legend. And I thought I was being clever with some of my twists in the book, and then I was like, oh, someone else had done some of this stuff too. So, uh,
that is interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because this is territory that people have covered before. So, I mean,
Mhm.
imagine that there would be a lot of things that people have done previously. So it's interesting that you were, you know, digging in like that. So, yeah, so I have another question actually. Um,
Okay.
I was very impressed. Well, so this is me bringing out my linguist side.
Okay.
um, I was very, actually, in both of the things that I read, but we'll get to the other one later. I was very impressed with your use of language,
Okay. Thank you.
and because the two styles that you use, and I'll stick with the King Arthur one for now, but in the two different universes that you have, the way that you use language is very, very different, strikingly different. Um, did you how did you I guess did you do any planning as far as the stylistically the language that you were using when you were putting together this trilogy?
Yeah, and it was something I struggled with quite a bit actually, because I wanted to strike a balance
Oh
between
yeah. Okay.
being authentic to my characters, but but yet, so that was on one side, and then on another side, I didn't want it to be this impenetrable work where I've just locked everybody out by language choices. Um,
Right.
yeah, and then of the danger of using slang in any work because it the time it takes for me to write the novel trilogy, and then the time it takes for it to get published and get to the market, by the time all that's happened, all the slang used in the book is all outdated. So,
Yeah.
so I was trying to be
Yeah, that makes
just
sense.
cognizant of that.
So I was noticing a couple of other things about so okay, I wanted to ask you about your naming.
Hmm.
um, you've obviously translated a lot of the names between the environments. And so Uther is like Luther, and
Right, right.
was that fun to do?
That was great to do. In fact, I have a writers group here in town, and and it's split. It was great because there's some black writers in there, and then there's some white writers in there, and the white writers were happen to be all these Arthurian experts, right? And so and the black writers, weren't as much into fantasy, but I mean it's a mixed writers group. And so when I was submitting
Mm-hmm.
pages to the group, it was great to watch the twin experiences of the readers. Because then the
Mm-hmm.
black readers were like, "Hey, I know this neighborhood. I feel like I've lived in this neighborhood. I know these people." And then the Arthurian folks were just having a ball going, "Hey, it was fun picking out who was supposed to be who in the course of the story." And
Right.
once they realized I was doing that, they were like, "It became a game for us." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, good."
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed Merlin as a white homeless dude.
Yeah, that's,
Sweet.
Hey, you got to read this. It's just so much fun.
that is that was my tip of the hat to Stephen King and his penchant for doing magical Negroes in his
Okay.
Oh!
stories.
The
So
magical white dude. I get
I,
it.
I call him my magical redneck.
That's awesome. Well, like what better to do than to completely reverse the trope of the magical Negro? That is just okay. See, I bow to you. You were brilliant.
Thank you, thank you.
That was awesome. Yeah. What a great idea. Awesome. So, well, let's see. Where else can we go with this? Che, do you have some questions about this particular environment?
Um, Not really. Like, how'd you work in like the monsters and stuff?
Um, well, it's interesting because you create this world, and in the world, uh, uh, there's a couple of things working here because on one level, the magic, for example, is sort of accepted as being a given as a part of the world. Because magic
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways becomes my metaphor for homelessness in that it's all around us. It's just if you know what you're looking for, then you can see it, and if you don't, then you're completely oblivious to it.
Ah, okay.
So I had that level of activity going on, and then just became sort of like a coded thing within the community. So like within the community, I mean, it was like one of my things was that we all have these secrets that we share within the community, but that we just don't let outsiders in on. And so of course we know about the trolls that are running around, or the elf assassins, or the magic that's going on. That's just par for course as a typical life. And so by the time,
Hmm.
if I wanted you to say that by the time that they were done reading, by the time they got to like, there's a dragon that pops up in one of the books. So they like, by the time they got to the idea of this dragon nesting at the bottom of this apartment building, they were just like, yeah, of course, that makes perfect sense. So I'm like, I've done my job then. By the time you get to a dragon under your building, it makes perfect sense.
This is great. Um, so terrific. Um, well, let's change gears a little bit
Okay.
then,
Okay.
and and go into the realm of steampunk.
Okay.
And I swear that just this is Maurice's other universe that he was telling me about, which I took a brief peek into this morning, and in the form of the Apex magazine story entitled "Pimp My Airship."
Yeah, sweet.
See, totally. um, so tell us a little bit about how you got into saying, okay, I'm going to do some steampunk here.
Oh. Well, I'd like to say I had this deep way of getting into writing steampunk, but I was on Twitter one day and I was goofing off, and I said that I was going to write a steam. I knew very little about steampunk, but I knew enough to make this one joke on Twitter, and I said
Okay.
I'm going to write a steampunk story with all black characters in it and call it "Pimp My Airship," and
Okay.
that was it. That's all I had done, and. I was like, that's it. My joke had a beginning, middle, end. I'm good with the joke, and I'm out. But then, like, 5 editors wrote me and said, well, when the story's done, send it to us. And I was like, uh-oh.
Oh, that's great.
Now I got to figure out a little bit more about steampunk. So what I ended up doing is I ended up buying a lot of the steampunk anthologies.
Mm.
Like at the time, Anne and Jeff Vandermeer had edited 2 anthologies, their steampunk anthologies, and I think I'd also bought Extraordinary Engines, just to get a feel for just what steampunk is, what the stories are like. And so
Hmm.
after I devoured all those books, I sat there and said, yeah, so I can't do that. That's yeah, I can't do that. I mean, for one thing, I kept asking myself, wow, those are some great stories, but where are all the black people?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so writing with and so it's just the idea of I have the stiff Victorian era, mores and ways of carrying on, and I was just like, that none of that feels like me. I don't really see myself in this genre. I don't see myself in these stories. Um, and so what I ended up doing is I ended up just putting on a bunch of Parliament Funkadelic and some James Brown, and just let that play in the background, and just said, all right, now I had to start a universe from scratch. Where would I begin? And so I just started writing the story, and so it begins with this sort of conceit, and this was a world building is like my favorite part of writing, and so I was just starting to create this world, and I don't. Oops! Oh, did we lose Juliet again?
Oh God.
Oh, I think we got her.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, nope, nope, there you are. I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm like in and out.
there you are.
Okay.
Keep going.
So guys, can you text me on the text me?
Um.
Oh, okay.
I don't know
Oh,
if you can see the chat bar, Maurice, but I'm trying to stay in with here with you.
nope,
Okay,
that's
so
okay.
we were on I don't see myself in this genre, and then
Right. Yeah.
the
So,
digital gods intervened.
okay. Well, so basically, I just started trying to imagine this universe, what a steampunk universe for me might look like, and so I was struck with the idea of colonialism, and so I was like, what if America was
Mm-hmm.
still a colony of England, like right now, and then what if slavery had lasted an extra 100 years because of that? What would that look
Mm.
like for a modern day Indianapolis? And so that's kind of where I sort of just started just sort of imagining my story, and uh, and so that led to this creation of this overcity and the undercity of Indianapolis. I tend to do a lot of bad things to Indianapolis. I really love my city. Uh, just, I just have different ways of seeing it sometimes. And so I created this landscape of what it would look like for some middle class folks just to be struggling within this system of colonialism, of examining some class issues that's going on at the times also, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and so that's just where the story sprang from.
Okay, very cool. I can tell I need to get your advice on something because I
Okay.
have a steampunk story that I'm going to work on, and I don't know steampunk that well either. So so I'm like, okay, Maurice is obviously the guy I got to talk to
Okay.
here. um, so tell us about the language in this one.
Um. Well, and that's well, there were a couple of things going on with that because I wrote this one almost in a lot of ways as a reaction to the Knights of Breton Court series.
Okay.
With the Knights of Breton Court, I mean, I tend to examine issues of race and class and poverty in a lot of my stories anyway, and identity is another big one that pops up. But like one of the struggles I had with the Knights of Breton Court was the fact that I was dealing with homeless teenagers and basically the black underclass and everything, and I was just like, well, we have other stories to tell than just of us in poverty. Um, so what would that look
Right.
like? Let me translate into a different examination of the culture and try and tell other stories. And so with
Mm-hmm.
Khmer, we have a middle and upper class black characters dealing with the same system. I mean, we're all still stuck in the same system, but now let's look at it from a different class perspective. Uh,
Right. Right.
so there was that element going on, and so when it came to the language, that's where it became again just fun for me to play with because um, okay, so I was born in London, and my mother's Jamaican, and my dad's American, and so these three flavors all sort of go into my worlds whenever I get to writing,
Mm-hmm.
and so when it comes to playing with language, I was just trying to see uh, in a lot of ways. Um, just trying to just trying to give a sense of the characters. Okay, so we're stuck in this steampunk world, and in the steampunk universe, people tend to talk a certain way. So I was just like, how would that look like, in a black world? Trying to, if because as a black person, I'm used to speaking one way when I'm in my workplace, and another when I'm at home with my family and with my friends. What would that look like in a steampunk universe where people are so used to having to bop between these different worlds, and yet what would that look like when they are, with themselves and just with their own people and everything? So those are the
Yeah.
sort of elements I was playing with when I was writing the story.
That's very interesting. It's sort of a code switching issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see if again, just one of these things I was trying to be cognizant of because it's like, is this too subtle a thing I'm trying to examine, or is it right in tune with what I'm trying to do? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there seems to be a whole sort of set of terminology that comes with steampunk and or at least a lot of the time. I mean, I am not somebody who's read a lot of steampunk. Um, I think probably I've read stories that some of my friends have written, and I've read Gail Carriger's Parasol Protectorate series a bit, which is kind of fun and definitely got steampunky aspects to it. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Actually, it's very it's fun. It's fun, and you know, the main character is a well, she starts out as a spinster who has no soul and carries around a rather heavy umbrella to defend herself against unwanted detention.
Right.
But anyway, I mean, it's a kick. But you've definitely got this sort of this. I don't know. I almost think it's like an independent dialect that's grown up. I mean, it's obviously inspired by the language use of the Victorian era, and yet it's definitely got its own sort of special terms and flavor and ether and you know. So tell me then about a little bit about where you went with the plot and that kind of thing, because I haven't gotten too far into that. But are you using magic, ethereal magic in this story, or how far does that go?
Not in this story, because all right. So when I was finished with Step and Razor, with Pimp My Airship, one of the criticisms I had about it was there was so much world. People could tell that there was a lot of world building involved, but they only got to see a glimmer of this world. And so
right.
It's been fun going back to the universe and just continuing to write stories set in this universe. And so I have, I think I have 6 stories now written in that universe. Four of them have been published.
Wow.
And so and I haven't gotten in. There is magic in this universe, but I haven't done a story specifically delving into the magic.
Okay.
I do touch on it a little bit in my story Step and Razor, and that was published in Asimov's magazine earlier this year. And so it's my Jamaican steampunk novelette, but it's still it's still set in the same Pimp My Airship universe. So, and part of the premise of that story was the fact that because, like I said, America is still a colony of England, but I started with the premise of, well, what if Jamaica never was a colony of England? What if it was allowed to develop and thrive and keep its wealth and to keep its resources? What would it look like with that sort of history behind it?
Yeah, interesting.
And so that's what led to my story Step and Razor. And again, that was just fun. It was almost like a love letter to my mom. It's like, all right, Mom, I've just imagined Jamaica as a superpower. So here we go.
Nice.
That sounds awesome. I'm gonna go have to look for that.
Oh yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites, and it has I do touch on a little bit of magic system because it's a magic system based off of Obia. So I only touch on it. I basically hint at it, but so I'm going to be diving more into that, and then it has it's more science fiction because there's a plot in there about in the steampunk world cloning Haile Selassie and bringing him back. So there's all and then the political intrigue surrounding that basically.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, there's what I'm struck by listening to is how many stories there are out there that just have not been told yet.
Right.
So
Especially
I mean, this is a yeah, I think so. There's the world is a big place. What can we say, right?
Right.
And I think you're doing some really neat things, opening up some different possibilities for us here. So that is very awesome. Well, let's see. So okay. My brain is whirling. It's all good.
No problem.
I come out of these half the time going, I gotta go write something. So okay. Do you want? Is there anything else we want to go into here on this particular universe, or are
Well,
you still working on stories
I
for it
I still am because basically what I
at this
decided I
point?
want to do is for in 2015 I'm going to finish a novelization of Pimp My Airship.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and so I'm coming back to it. I'm revisiting the whole universe because I mean the whole story is basically about this guy who accidentally falls in with the revolution, this underground revolution against the system. And so he's sort of this reluctant revolutionary. And so I want just to sort of follow his story a little bit more while I explore this world that I've created. But as I develop the world, and this is why the story it's been so slow going, is because I'll write like a few chapters in this world, and then I'll take a detour and like write a whole nother short story or a novelette just so I can work out some kinks of the world in my head. Uh,
Wow.
and so like I said, I've written about a half dozen stories and novelettes in this world so far, and I'm only on like chapter 5 or 6 of the novel. So, I know I have at least 2 more short stories to sort of tell the backstory on some of the aspects of the world as I'm going. Uh, so, uh, that's probably what's going to keep me busy for during 2015.
Cool.
Yeah, that sounds like it'll keep you busy for a while. um, so I know how it's very easy to sort of say, well, I've got this universe and I know how it works, and I'm going to put more things in it. Do you have any grand concepts in the works that you would like to discuss, or
Um, let's see.
are you branching out from there? Or are you still working within those two universes?
I'm I seem to have accidentally created another world. Actually, 2 other worlds
Awesome.
that I keep coming back to. One is a world in ancient Africa that I've written 3 short stories in so far, and they're all. I tend to write these connected short stories. It's like once I create a world, it's like I created this whole world, and I've only written a short story in it. I can't just like let it sit there, and so I'll keep writing short stories set in that world. And so I did that once with a series of sword and sorcery short stories. But then I've created this futuristic society that I've gotten 2 stories published from in that world too. One's called The Valkyrie and one's called Voice of the Martyrs. And basically, it's this future world where the church is sort of taken over. The church and the military have become one, and
Mm.
so when they go on evangelistic missions, which are basically colonizing other worlds, it just takes on a whole new level. And so basically the 2 stories involve this soldier, and she joined the church early on, and has been rising in the ranks in their military, and so it's just her struggles with going out and evangelizing other worlds. So, but like I said,
Hmm.
world building is definitely my favorite part of writing. So I tend to go overboard when I create a new world, and then I keep finding excuses to go revisit some of these worlds.
That's sort of my favorite part of writing too. So I, I haven't published a single story where I didn't have at least one person saying, you should write a novel here.
Right.
Like, oh man, really? Do I have to? Well, okay, fine. Yeah. Um, well, certainly. Did you lose me?
Nope, nope, we got you.
Okay, you got me. Well, certainly it seems like world building is a big thing for you because I've got lots of notes. um, this is going to be a fun one to write up. It really, really terrific stuff. Um, well, let's see. So why don't we do free for all questiony sort of stuff,
Okay.
and then maybe It's 10 minutes to 6-ish, so a few final questions or thoughts, and then we can maybe wrap it up.
Okay.
What do you think? I know I'm putting a lot of pressure on you there, Che.
I know.
Now, questions.
Ah!
It's
I
okay.
don't know. I kind of like stick some looks at your website, and you seem to be in a lot of horror anthologies.
Oh yeah.
You like horror?
You know what? Here's when I first started writing, I came up writing. I got into writing horror short stories, and so that was always one of my first loves. And so I just kept sort of hung out in the horror community, came up in the horror community, and then I've just sort of branched out from there. But horror is definitely one of my first loves. That's why even though I'm telling this fantasy story with the Knights of Breton Court, like halfway through, it's like, and now zombies, because I really, really like zombies.
Oh no! That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you're doing it because zombies are like so not my thing.
Right.
But there's so much room for them out there, apparently.
Right. Right.
That's great. And well, I think in a way that that the horror sensibility, I'm not going to call it the horror sensibility as though there's only one.
Right. Right.
But I think that the sensitivity, I think you have a great sensitivity to not shrinking away from the underbelly of things, and making sure to keep your eyes open as things get hairy, which I think strengthens the narratives that you're telling for sure.
Right.
So I could see how that might somehow be related to your horror background.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's like I said, sometimes the most terrifying things I end up writing about are just real life things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the reasons why I've always enjoyed horror, because I get to explore a lot of issues in just sort of frank and unblinking ways that the genre is just built for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Now I think you guys are laughing because you're losing me again, maybe.
I only
All
have
right.
no questions.
Well, I think I better retreat
horror?
while I'm still ahead.
Okay. Because I'd like one more dumb question.
Yeah.
J horror or K horror?
Oh. I think I'm more J horror.
Oh God, yeah. There's some of that. I found out what Audition was about, and I'm not gonna watch that ever.
Audition was great, and especially as for that last 15 minutes, you're like, oh, okay, that just happened. All right.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh my God. Alright, I'm sorry, I'm done.
That's all right.
About that because I have like very little awareness of the existence of that distinction. So there you go.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Japanese horror movies versus Korean horror movies. Well,
yeah, no, I figured it was Japanese and Korean, right?
Yeah.
Because there's also J-pop and K-pop, and I know a lot about J-pop, but not J-horror, because horror's been something that I kind of shy away from, being rather, I don't know, of a delicate state of mind that will lead me to having nightmares for weeks. There it is.
Oh my God.
However, yeah, well, so there you are. But anyway, let me say I'm gonna actually wrap this up here at this point
Okay.
because I keep having connectivity problems, and I
Yeah.
feel like I'm, I feel like I'm stretching my luck as it is. But Maurice, thank you so much for coming to talk with us. I hope that the video ends up being watchable.
Okay.
But I'm certainly going to be writing it up in the next week or so, and so it will be on the list of reports on my blog.
Oh, cool.
And next week, our hangout is going to be on Thursday afternoon at 5 p.m.
Oh my
and
gosh.
our guest is going to be Joyce Ching, who will be joining us from Singapore to
Oh, wow.
talk about Singaporean werewolves
Huh?
and desert planets with disabled Asian protagonists and other sorts of awesomeness. So, please feel free to join us anytime, Maurice, if you would like to be one of the question askers.
Okay.
But I really appreciated you being here today. It was fascinating to hear about your work. I'm going to have to go read some more, and I'm going to stop the broadcast. So,
Yay.
All right. Hey, thanks
bye,
for having me.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.